set spiritual goals, and then we set family goals. And it's interesting to see how some of our strategies and mindsets and goals have shifted over the last 20 years, 20 plus years. So absolutely, do we need a roadmap? Definitely. Every person needs a roadmap, both in their professional life as well as in their personal life. And so I think it would be like starting in Los Angeles, driving for some goofy reason to New York, right? You wouldn't go without a map. You wouldn't go without your phone today. So why do we treat our lives any differently? If we don't have goals, if we don't have objectives, then how are we going to know whether we're falling short or whether we're accomplishing what we're setting out to do?
Yeah, and it amazes me, as I'm consulting with different business owners, how many actually are doing that very thing. Kind of flying by the seat of their pants, going willy-nilly without really having that plan. That they start a business because they're so excited to get into it, but never took the time to do the business plan before opening their doors. And right. Like I say, it amazes me how many people are doing that. And in fact, that kind of leads me to the next few questions that I had for you. Excuse me. Is what would be some of the reasons that you think maybe some of the starting out entrepreneurs are failing and giving up?
Lack of a plan, number one. That would, as a former banker, I can also attest to some of the startups that I've been a part of, where I would ask them, well, what are your revenue goals or what are your margin goals? And, well, I want a lot. Well, okay, what's a lot mean? And so as I, there's enough evidence to convict me of being a serial entrepreneur. I bought and sold 3 businesses over a period of 14 years. And I was fortunate to always have the gift of relationship building or, sales. But I think the other thing is that people newly starting in business are not really drawing on some of the knowledge and the wisdom that people that others in their circles have. And then I'm also observing that too many people are talking 70% of the time when they should be listening 70% of the time and talking 30%, because we can draw on a lot of wisdom of people with some gray hair. Or somebody that's gone before us, basically. So that, sure. I think ego and pride is really why 7 out of 8 startups fail in the United States. And they thought they were passionate about it, but they may have been really good at sewing those shoes or producing that widget, but they had no idea how to do marketing, had no idea how to do a balance sheet, had no idea how to actually get the product to market, and that's what's holding a lot of them back.
Yeah, and that kind of leads over to the concept of to where you're actually delegating some of those tasks, because when you put together that plan, you also know at this point I'm going to need to have this person because I'm not good at that, and so it really lets you know. It's kind of like your analogy of traveling across the country. It's like, okay, at this point I need to have my co-pilot, so to speak, take over the wheel, because, I'm not going to be good in this area. Maybe I'm afraid of heights, so I don't want to drive across the Rockies. That would be a smart decision, because you might just end up, taking a switchback and going off the edge if you're afraid of heights. So, it's good to, hand off, the baton, so to speak, and let somebody else handle that piece of the job.
Right.
And if you don't have a plan, you don't know if that's coming up. And so then you become, like you say on the statistic, one of the 7 out of 8 that end up failing.
Yeah, I think another observation that I would say too, James, is that too many wannabe entrepreneurs believe that their greatest limitation is they don't have enough money, when in reality money becomes such a crutch to us, and in many ways it's more of a burden than it is a blessing. If you have access to a lot of capital, because if you can't manage a little, how are you going to manage a lot, is what I've said to many people as I've been involved in investing in some startups.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are some of the roadblocks that, in your experience, that you would advise new entrepreneurs to watch out for? And then the flip side of that question, I'll do kind of a two-parter here, is what would be some of the resources that you would advise them to be keeping their eyes out for?
The second part of that question is a little bit easier for me to answer than the first, I guess. I'm a big believer in networking in your local communities. So getting plugged in to, if it's a functional chamber of commerce, getting involved in some of your professional organizations have served me very, very well over the years. And I think if you're going to build a business, it's imperative that you know who your competitors are, number one. But it's also important to know who your potential strategic alliances might be with in your community. And our communities are growing, with the connectivity of the world. Our communities are no longer within that 10-mile radius or that 100-mile radius. Our communities can be, coast to coast. I think that the pitfalls that I've seen in startups that I've been part of the audience to observe is maybe their timing was off. Maybe they were too late to the party. The pitfalls may have been that they came from a family that wasn't necessarily a family of encouragement. In other words, they were talking about how they were destined for failure instead of destined for success. So I think attitude is a significant part of being a successful entrepreneur. I remember working 80, 90 hours a week for many, many years, where I wasn't going to fail. What I say from stage now is I never lose. I either win or I learn.
Right.
Or I may refer to myself as a non-winner, but I would never want that label of loser pasted on my forehead. So I'm either winning or I'm learning through the challenges that I face. But there's no, as you know, there's no better feeling than being your own boss, and that's where I speak with people that are in my coaching business that are just struggling because they don't have freedom, because they feel trapped. And being an entrepreneur certainly gives you a good amount of freedom, as long as you have a sufficient cash flow, which will oftentimes retard somebody's growth if they don't have that sufficient cash flow. But the freedom that comes in the lifestyle that's available being an entrepreneur is second to none, in my opinion.
Very true. Very true. Something I've certainly enjoyed, about being an entrepreneur is, being able to, kind of, drive the bus, as I'll call it, being able to control your course and course correct, the way that you want to, rather than, following someone else's agenda or someone else's, roadmap, as it were. Is you've basically written your own roadmap to be able to, chart that course.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say very often, this country was built on the backs of entrepreneurs.
Right.
It was the people selling the picks and the shovels to those that were doing the gold mining that were doing well. So this country, the heritage of this company is based on freedoms, as well as the entrepreneurs that took a risk and risked everything, in order to build their businesses and so on. So I'm proud of the heritage that's here, and I really look to supporting those next generations to say, don't just settle for mediocrity. How do we achieve higher levels of success? But success doesn't always mean your 401k or your savings account. Success is measured by freedom. It's by lifestyle. It's by quality of life. It's by longevity. It's by relationships. I mean, there's many adjectives that we could use to define success, where too often I think we get trapped by the vehicles we drive, the houses we live in, and our W-2s. basically.
Yeah, fair point there. Some gold nuggets for people listening today, because that's certainly a good perspective on it, is not looking at the ledger, but instead the outcome of what that ledger is producing. That's what's going to give you joy.
Right.
Is really what you're achieving, not so much what you're accumulating. Kind of going back to the point you were mentioning earlier. Everybody's at your graveside. They're going to ask one of two questions: is how do they impact people? But the other question is, it's always going to be somebody to say what do they leave behind, and the answer to that is obvious. They left everything. So what are you leaving? Is it just money? Is it just money in the bank, or are you leaving a bunch of lives that have been impacted?
Right. Yeah. I remember as my grandfather was dying, I said to him, I said, Grandpa, if you could change anything in your life, what would it be? He said, well, I wouldn't have worked as hard as I did, and I would have spent more time with my children. And I took away from that the regrets as a person is leaving this world. The regrets are not those things they did and failed at. It's those things that they wish they had done and didn't even try. Those are the regrets that I speak about often too. So it's okay to fail. It's okay to fall short, but we have to get up, dust ourselves off, and persevere for sure. So it's the regrets that hold too many people back. And when I say it's the what ifs, right? It's that fear of failure that holds too many of us back, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So how do your personal values, either value systems and so forth, how does that show up in your particular work? And how do you how would you advise other people to incorporate their value systems, either intellectual values or even spiritual values, into their particular ventures? How would you advise that?
Yeah, I have an interesting journey. My book that's coming out shortly is titled "God Took Me to Las Vegas to Get Sober." So it's been an interesting journey for me. And I was introduced on stage. It's a few years ago now, and the CEO that was introducing me said to me, he said, so Randy, he said, tell me what's important to you in your life, and why are you here? And I thought, oh man, this wasn't exactly the audience for me to share my spiritual journey. And, but yet I said, well, here's what's important to me. Number one is God in my life is number one. Number two is my wife. Number three is my family. And number four is the opportunity to serve here in this role or my business. And for me, when I gained that clarity in March of 1992, that's really when my life started to radically change. I had been sober for about 18 months by that time, but it changed perspective for me from a value standpoint, because up until that time, I was going to do whatever it took to win. And no matter who I had to hurt, no matter who I had to harm, no matter what I had to say or do, I was going to win. And from a value standpoint today, I really want people to behave in fair and equitable manners. I want to live a life where I'm recognized for the values and the characteristics and the integrity that I desire to have. So I think what I heard a while ago now is the best sermons, whether you're a churchgoer or not, the best sermons are those that you watch, not those that you hear. So when we're actually living the life of who we want to be, who we desire to be, that life of integrity, character, values, and purpose, that's when other people notice, and that's when they want to follow you. And that's where those are the values that I sleep well at night. I have an opportunity to interact with men and women literally around the globe, and I just want to be a beacon where I wish I would have changed lifestyles and some of my destructive behaviors before I reached my late 30s. But I'm fortunate to put a few 24-hour periods together now, and life's good.